My best friend disappeared 13 years ago. He just added me on Snapchat and told me the horrifying reason why. Danny Martinez was my best friend from kindergarten until the summer before 8th grade. We did everything together. Sleepovers every weekend. Bike rides through the woods behind my house. Staying up until 3 a.m. playing video games while his mom yelled at us to go to sleep. He was the closest thing I had to a brother. On July 14th, 2012, Danny vanished. We were supposed to meet at the park that morning. I waited for 2 hours, but he never showed. When I biked to his house, his mom was standing in the front yard talking to police officer. She was screaming and crying and pulling at her hair. I'd never seen an adult break down like that before. They searched for months. Dogs, helicopters, volunteers combing through every inch of those woods. They found his bike by the creek, both tires slashed, but no Danny, no body, no witnesses, no leads. After a year, the case went cold. After 3 years, most people stopped talking about it. His mom moved away and his dad drank himself to death. I never stopped thinking about him. Every birthday, every graduation, every milestone, I wondered if Danny was out there somewhere, alive or dead. Last night, I got my answer. I was scrolling through Snapchat around midnight when a notification popped up. Friend request from Danny M 2012. My heart stopped. I clicked on the profile. No bitmoy, no score, nothing except a single photo on the story. It was a picture of 2 kids on bikes in front of a creek. Me and Danny, the last photo ever taken of us together. I accepted the request with shaking hands. A message came through immediately. Jake, it's me. I don't have much time, so please just read. I typed back. Who is this? This isn't funny. I know you don't believe me. Ask me something only Danny would know. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I thought about all those nights we spent together. All the secrets we shared. What did we bury in my backyard the night before you disappeared? The response came instantly. A time capsule. Shoebox with baseball cards, a note to our future selves, and the bracelet I stole from Jessica Miller because I was too scared to give it to her. I couldn't breathe. We never told anyone about that. Not our parents, not our other friend. No one. Danny? What happened to you? Where have you been? The typing indicator appeared and disappeared several times. Then a long message came through. I can't explain everything. They monitor what I say, but you need to know the truth. I wasn't kidnapped by a stranger. It was someone we knew. Someone we trusted. He told me he was taking me somewhere fun. A surprise for my birthday. I got in the car because I recognized him. Because you and I had been to his house 100 times. My stomach dropped. Who? I typed. Your dad? Jake. Your dad took me. I stared at the screen. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. That was impossible. My dad coached our little league team. He drove us to school every morning. He was at the search parties. He helped put up the missing posters. You're lying. I sent back. I'm not. I've been in a room under your house for 13 years. There's a door in your basement behind the shelf with the paint cans. I can hear you walking above me sometimes. I heard you crying when your mom left. I heard you graduate high school through the floorboards. I've been right beneath you this whole time and I couldn't scream because he took my tongue the first year when I tried. I dropped my phone. I was sitting in my living room. My dad was asleep upstairs. The basement was 15 feet away. My phone buzzed again. He's going to check on me soon. He always does at 1 a.m. You have maybe 20 minutes. The shelf slides to the left. There's a padlock on the door. Combination is your birthday. He thought it was funny. I looked at the clock. 12:42 a.m. Jake, please. I've been waiting 13 years for a chance to reach you. I stole this phone from him last week and I've been hiding it. This is my only chance. If you don't come now, he'll find out and he'll move me again like he did with the others. My blood ran cold. Others? I'm not the first. There were 2 before me. I found their names carved into the wall. He kept them for a few years each, and then they just stopped being there. I don't know what happened to them, but I know I'm getting too old for him. I think my time is almost up. I stood up slowly. The basement door was right there. I'd been down there 1,000 times, grabbed Christmas decorations, helped my dad with tools, done laundry. I knew every inch of that basement, but I'd never moved that shelf. It was heavy, bolted to the wall. My dad always said it was load-bearing and couldn't be touched. I'm coming. I typed. Hurry. And Jake, bring something to defend yourself. He's not the person you think he is. He never was. I crept to the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife from the block. My dad's snoring echoed from upstairs. I walked to the basement door and opened it as quietly as I could. The stairs creaked with every step. The shelf was exactly where Danny said it would be. Old paint cans, rusty tools, boxes of junk. I grabbed the edge and pulled. It slid to the left on hidden rollers. Behind it was a steel door with a padlock. I punched in my birthday with trembling fingers. 081599. The lock clicked open. The smell hit me first. Rot and mildew and something else I couldn't identify. I pulled out my phone flashlight and pointed it into the darkness. Stone steps leading down into a room that shouldn't exist. I took one step, then another. The walls were concrete, covered in scratches and stains I didn't want to think about. At the bottom, I saw a shape huddled in the corner. Danny? The shape moved, slowly, painfully. A figure crawled into the light. It was him. Older, skeletal, with sunken eyes and scars covering every inch of visible skin. But it was Danny. I recognized the birthmark on his neck, the same one he used to hide because kids made fun of it. He opened his mouth, and I saw the empty space where his tongue used to be. He pointed frantically behind me. I spun around. My dad was standing at the top of the stairs, blocking the only exit. He was holding a hammer and smiling. I knew he'd contact you eventually, he said calmly. I just didn't think he'd be smart enough to find a phone. He started walking down the steps. I'm disappointed in you. Jake, I really am. I was hoping you'd never have to find out. Dad, what is this? What did you do? He stopped a few feet away. His smile didn't waver. What I had to do. What I've always done. You wouldn't understand. Danny was tugging at my leg, trying to pull me towards something. I looked down and saw him pointing at a crack in the wall, a hole just big enough to squeeze through. Don't even think about it, my dad said. There's nowhere to go. That tunnel leads to the wood, but I'll catch you before you make it 10 feet. I always do. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at it without thinking. A final message from Danny's account. I sent everything to the police before I messaged you. Screenshot of his confession, location of the house, all of it. They're on their way. You just have to survive until they get here. My dad saw me look at my phone. His smile finally disappeared. What did you do? Siren. Faint, but getting closer. His grip tightened on the hammer. You have no idea what you've just started, he whispered. Then he looked past me, at Danny, and his expression shifted to something I'd never seen before. Pure rage. This is your fault. You just couldn't stay quiet, could you? After everything I did for you. After I chose you. He raised the hammer and stepped toward us. The sirens were getting louder, but they weren't here yet. My dad smiled again. They won't make it in time. Time slowed. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, pounding so hard it made the edges of my vision blur. The basement air felt thick, like I was breathing through wet cloth. My fingers were cramped around the kitchen knife. I realized I'd never actually stabbed anything in my life, not even a piece of meat that wasn't already cut. My dad took another step down. The hammer gleamed in the light from my phone. Move, Danny was trying to mouth, but without a tongue, the sound came out as a wet, desperate gargle. His nails dug into my ankle. He was stronger than he looked. 13 years in a concrete box hadn't taken that from him. Jake, my dad said, voice low and calm like he was talking me through a math problem. Put the knife down. You're not a killer. You're my son. I thought about birthday parties and Christmas mornings and road trips and little league games. I thought about how many times I'd fallen asleep in the back seat of his car on the way home from practice, trusting him completely. I thought about Danny's missing tongue. The sirens wailed closer, a rising, distorted cry through the thick walls. My dad glanced up toward the ceiling, calculating. I saw it in his eyes. He was doing math too. Distances, angles, how long he had. His gaze snapped back to me. The smile was gone now. His face was flat, empty, like someone had turned off a light behind his eyes. Last chance, he said. Put the knife down and walk upstairs. I'll handle this. How? I heard myself ask. My voice didn't sound like my own. How are you going to handle this? The same way I've always handled it, he said. You think this is the first time someone's come looking? The first time someone knocked at the door? He shook his head, almost pitying. You have no idea the things I've done to protect you, to keep our family safe. Safe? I choked. You kidnapped my best friend. His jaw clenched. For the first time, something like genuine anger flickered across his features. I saved you from him, he snapped. The words were so insane I actually laughed, a short, broken bark that sounded deranged even to my own ears. What are you talking about? He took another step down, lowering the hammer slightly, like we were just two people having a conversation. You don't remember what he was like when you two got older, my dad said. But I do. I saw it. The way he looked at you, the way he touched you, the way he tried to pull you away from me. His eyes sharpened. You think I didn't see him try to get you to run away that summer? You think I didn't find the notes? What notes? I asked, confused. Behind me, Danny made a strangled sound and shook his head violently. My dad's lip curled. Of course he didn't tell you. He shifted his weight on the steps. He wanted you to think he cared about you, but that's what they do. That's how they work. They get close. They get inside your head, and then they take you away. Lightning crawled across my brain, connecting half memories, Danny whispering excitedly on the playground. You ever think about just leaving? Getting out of here? My dad yelling that summer when he caught us sneaking out, even though we'd just been in the backyard. The way he'd forbidden me from sleeping over at Danny's house anymore. The way he'd started picking me up earlier from school, from games, from everything. You're lying, I said. But my voice wasn't as strong. I found a note under your bed, my dad said softly. You remember? You wrote it together. Run away July 20th, woods behind Jake's house. Take bikes and meet at creek. Never come back. He stared at me. He was going to take you from me. That was... My mouth went dry. 13 years washed over me all at once. A tide of forgotten details. We were kids. We were playing. We weren't actually going to... Maybe, my dad said. Maybe that time. Maybe you would have chickened out, but it wouldn't have stopped there. He was already in your head. He talked back to teacher. He stole. He lied. He pulled you into everything. His eyes shone with a feverish conviction. I saw the way he looked at you, like you were his, like I didn't exist, like I wasn't your father. The sirens cut closer. I could make out individual whoops now, the Doppler effect bending their sound against the walls. Tires screeched faintly on pavement above us. My dad's nostrils flared. Listen to me, Jake. I did what fathers do. I protected you. I removed the threat. His voice hardened. I put him where he couldn't reach you anymore. I looked back at Danny. He was staring up at my dad with an expression I didn't recognize. Not just fear, not just hate, something else. Something like recognition, like he'd heard this speech before, 100 times. He shook his head slowly, eyes wide, tears tracking down his grimy cheeks. He pressed his palm flat against his chest, then pointed at me, then at my dad, then made a twisting motion near his temple. Crazy. He's crazy. My dad's gaze flicked to him. You don't get to manipulate him anymore, he said coldly. You had your chance. You almost succeeded. He took another step down. There were only 4 steps between us now, but I stopped you. I sacrificed everything for him. You didn't sacrifice, I whispered. You tortured him. His eyes narrowed. You have no idea what I've sacrificed. His voice dropped to a hoarse whisper. Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I wasn't terrified the first time? You think I didn't throw up every night for weeks? You think it was easy to lie to your mother? To sit next to her while she cried about the missing boy and pretend I hadn't done that? He looked genuinely hurt now, like I was the one betraying him. First time, I said. The hammer in his hand trembled. The sirens cut off abruptly. For a second, the world was eerily silent. No more wail. Just the hum of the basement light, the drip of some unseen leak, the ragged breaths of 3 people who'd run out of places to hide. Then, faintly, I heard car doors slam. Voices. Radio chatter. They're here, I said. My dad exhaled slowly, like he'd been waiting for this moment for a long time. Then we're out of time, he said. He moved. I barely saw it. 1 second he was on the steps, the next he was lunging, hammer arcing down toward my head. Pure instinct took over. I threw myself sideways, feeling the rush of air as the hammer missed my skull by inches and slammed into the concrete beside me with a deafening crack. Pain exploded in my arm, not from the hammer, but from the edge of the stairs as I hit them hard, tumbling down the last few steps and landing flat on my back. The knife skittered across the floor, clattering into the darkness. Jake! My dad roared. I scrambled on the slick concrete, fingers clawing at nothing. The floor was damp with something that smelled like bleach and old blood. Danny was suddenly in front of me, his hands under my shoulders, pulling, dragging, his thin arms shaking with effort. My dad came down the stairs in 3 long strides. Stop! He barked. Don't make me hurt you, Jake. Just stop. He swung the hammer down at Danny's back. I don't know where the scream came from. It tore out of my throat raw and animal as I lunged forward, grabbing the hammer handle with both hands mid-swing. The impact jolted up my arms, sending spikes of pain into my shoulders, but I held on. For a second we were locked there, father and son, both of us gripping the hammer between us, our faces inches apart. I love you, he grunted, pushing down with terrifying strength. I'm doing this for us. You don't get to say that, I hissed through clenched teeth. Not anymore. I twisted with everything I had. The hammer slipped from his grip. Momentum carried us both sideways. We slammed into the wall. His shoulder hit first. He grunted, momentarily stunned. Run! I yelled at Danny, but Danny didn't run. He moved past me, faster than I thought possible with his half-starved body. His fingers, red and raw, clawed at the floor until he found the knife I'd dropped. He closed his hand around the handle and turned back toward us. My dad saw the movement. Don't, he said sharply, eyes wide for the first time. Danny! Danny didn't hesitate. He launched himself at my dad with a sound I will hear in my nightmares for the rest of my life. A guttural, wordless roar, all the years of pain and fear and rage compressed into one inhuman noise. The knife flashed. My dad tried to step back, but his foot slipped on the damp concrete. The blade sank into his thigh just above the knee. He screamed, dropping the hammer as his leg buckled. Blood sprayed across the floor. Fuck! He shouted, grabbing for Danny, his fingers tangling in Danny's filthy hair. They crashed to the ground together, a tangle of limbs. My dad's hand closed around Danny's throat. Danny's fingers tightened on the knife. For a second, I just stared, frozen. Then I heard it. Police! Open up! This is the police! The sound came from upstairs, muffled through the floorboards. Fists pounded on the front door. A radio crackled. My dad's eyes snapped toward the ceiling. Son of a bitch! He hissed. He looked back at me. The expression on his face was no longer empty. It was blazing. You brought them here! He snarled. You chose them over me. His hand jerked on Danny's throat. Danny's face turned purple, his eyes bulging. I saw the tendons in my dad's arm tense. He was going to snap his neck or crush his windpipe. He'd done this before. He knew how. I didn't think. I grabbed the hammer. It felt heavier now, like it knew what it was being asked to do. Jake, my dad said, seeing the movement. His voice softened, even as his fingers kept squeezing Danny's throat. Don't. You're not like me. You don't want this on your conscience. He wasn't wrong. I didn't want it. I didn't want any of this. But I wanted Danny to live more. I swung. I didn't aim for his head. Not at first. Some part of me still couldn't process the idea of my father's skull breaking under my hands. I aimed lower, at his injured leg. The hammer connected with a sickening crunch. My dad screamed, his grip on Danny loosening as his body convulsed. His hand flew to his ruined thigh. Danny rolled away, coughing and sucking in ragged breaths. I stood over my father, chest heaving. The hammer raised again. He stared up at me, face twisted in agony, sweat beading his forehead. For the first time, he looked old, small. Not the giant who'd carried me on his shoulders. Not the invincible man who'd seemed to hold the whole world together. Just a broken, bleeding man on a basement floor. He laughed. It was a choked, wet sound, more blood than humor. You think this ends with me? he wheezed. You think locking me up fixes anything? You're a child. I swallowed hard. Shut up, I said, but my voice trembled. He reached toward me, fingers slick with his own blood, leaving a smear on my jeans. I did what had to be done, he whispered. And when you're a father, you'll understand. You'll see what the world really is, what boys like him grow up to be. His eyes flicked to Danny, who was dragging himself toward the crack in the wall. You're saving the wrong one. Jake Morelli! A voice bellowed from upstairs. This is Officer Harding with County Police. We have reason to believe you're in danger. Call out if you can hear us. My dad smiled weakly. You hear that? He said. They're calling for you. You think they're going to believe your story? You think they're going to listen when you say the beloved Little League coach is a monster? You have any idea how many of them are my friends? How many barbecues they've been to here? His smile widened, teeth red. You're the one standing over a bleeding man with a hammer, he said softly. You opened the secret door. You came down here. You attacked me. You're hysterical. You're traumatized. You don't remember everything, right? You had a troubled friend. Maybe you snapped. Maybe you kept him here. Stop, I said, my voice cracking. He didn't. Maybe your mom left because of you, he murmured. Maybe she saw something in you she didn't like. Maybe she saw the same sickness in your eyes that I saw in his. Maybe she couldn't stand the way you looked at. I brought the hammer down. This time, I didn't aim for his leg. The crack of metal on bone echoed off the concrete walls like a gunshot. My dad's eyes went wide, then unfocused. For a second, he twitched. A horrible jerk of limbs. Then he went still. Blood seeped across the floor, finding the old stains and making them fresh again. Jake! Officer Harding again. Closer now. We're coming in. Wood splintered above us. The front door gave way. Heavy boots thundered across the floor, shaking dust loose from the ceiling of the secret room. I heard the familiar creak of the basement door opening. Police, announce yourself! For a heartbeat, I considered running into the tunnel with Danny, just crawling into the dark and never coming back. Instead, I forced my hand open. The hammer slipped from my fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. I raised my arms. Down here! I yelled, my voice breaking. We're down here! The next few minutes were a blur of shouted commands, blinding flashlight beams, and the cold bite of handcuffs. Drop the weapon, step away from him. He's my dad, I heard myself say through numb lips. He took my friend. He took Danny. My knees buckled. Someone caught me under the arms and lowered me to the floor. Easy, kid. We got you. We got you. More flashlights swept the room. Someone swore loudly when they saw Danny. Jesus Christ. Get EMS down here now. Sir, can you hear me? Blink if you can hear me. Careful, don't move his neck yet. We don't know what kind of injuries. I turned my head in slow motion. Danny was staring at me, eyes glassy but locked on mine. A paramedic was kneeling beside him, hands hovering, unsure where to start. There were too many scars, too many wounds. Old and new, layered over each other like a horrible collage. Danny lifted a shaking hand. For a second, I thought he was reaching for me. Then he pointed at my dad's body. His fingers traced something in the air, shaky and slow. 2, then 3. Officer Harding followed his gesture. Yeah, he muttered grimly. We see him. Danny shook his head violently. He dragged his finger along the concrete near my father's body, blood smearing under his nail. He was trying to write something. Hold on, buddy, the paramedic said. You gotta stop moving. Danny slammed his fist weakly against the floor and kept scratching. H.A. He stopped for a second, panting. Is there a pen? I croaked. He can't talk. Someone pressed a Sharpie into my hand before I finished the sentence. I crawled the short distance to Danny on my knees, the cuffs biting into my wrists. Here, I said, grabbing his hand and closing his fingers around the pen. Here, use this. He stared at me with such intensity it hurt. Then he began to write. Not on the floor this time. On his own arm. Big, shaky letters, pressing so hard the tip of the marker cut into his skin. H-A-N-D. He paused. His eyes rolled for a second. A paramedic shouted something about blood pressure. I clutched Danny's shoulder. Stay with me, I begged. Please, stay with me. He kept going. L-E-R. Handler. He dropped the pen. What does that mean? Officer Harding asked, frowning. Handler for what? Danny's fingers curled, his nails scraping weakly against his forearm. He dragged them under what he'd written, drawing a crooked line beneath the word, but he was underlining it. Then, with the last of his strength, he tapped his chest twice. Me. His hand fell to the floor. Danny? I whispered. Hey, no. Hey, stay awake, please. You can't. I just got you back. You can't. The paramedic pushed me aside gently. We're losing him, he snapped. Let's go. Let's go. They hoisted Danny onto a stretcher. His head lolled, his eyes fluttered, unfocused. As they carried him up the stone step, his gaze passed over my dad's body without stopping. He didn't look away in fear. He looked away in disgust. Then he was gone, swallowed by the brightness of the stairwell. A hand touched my shoulder. I looked up into Officer Harding's face. He'd coached a different team in Little League. I remembered him from the games. Loud, boisterous, always laughing. Right now his face was gray. Jake, he said quietly, we're going to get you out of these cuffs, okay? You're not under arrest. We just needed to secure the scene. He nodded at another officer, who unlocked the cuffs. The metal fell away from my wrists. Angry red marks circled my skin. I hit him, I said dully. I killed my dad. Harding's jaw tightened. We'll sort all that out later, he said. Right now, I need you to tell me everything that happened, from the moment he showed up downstairs. Can you do that? I opened my mouth, and the world tilted. The next thing I remember clearly is fluorescent lights and the smell of antiseptic. I was in a hospital bed. An IV line trailed from my arm. My clothes were gone, replaced by a thin gown. My knuckles were scraped raw. My right arm, the one that had hit the stairs, was wrapped in an elastic bandage. My throat felt like I'd been screaming for hours. I wasn't alone. Officer Harding sat in a chair in the corner, a styrofoam cup of coffee cooling in his hands. His tie was loosened. His eyes were red. He looked like he hadn't slept in years. He perked up when he saw me stir. Hey, he said gently. Welcome back. What time is it? I croaked. Almost 9 in the morning, he said. You passed out. Probably the adrenaline crash. They gave you something to calm you down. You've been in and out for a couple hours. My brain tried to catch up. Images flickering across my mind like a broken projector. The Snapchat notification. The basement door. The hammer. My dad's head. Danny. Where is he? I pushed myself up too fast. The room spun. Danny, where is he? Is he okay? Is he easy? Harding said, putting a hand on my shoulder. He's here. I see you. They're working on him. Is he going to live? I demanded. Harding hesitated. My stomach dropped. Tell me. I snapped. Please. I need to know. He lost a lot of blood. Harding said carefully. He's severely malnourished. Multiple old fractures. Infection in a few of the wounds. They're doing everything they can. The fact that he was conscious at all when we got there is honestly kind of a miracle. That wasn't an answer. Can I see him? I asked. Not yet, Harding said. He's in surgery. They'll let you know if visitors are allowed. If, I repeated numbly. Silence settled between us, thick and heavy. Finally, Harding cleared his throat. Jake, he said, I know this is the worst night of your life. I'm not going to pretend I understand what you're going through, but there's some stuff we need to talk about while it's still fresh. Is that okay? I wanted to say no. I wanted to curl up and disappear. Instead, I nodded. He pulled a small notebook from his pocket. First of all, he said, I want you to know that the scene is secure. Your house is now a crime scene. We've got forensics down there. State police are on their way. The FBI's been notified. The FBI? I echoed. You kept a missing child in your basement for 13 years, Harding said bluntly. That's interstate kidnap. There's a good chance your dad's activities went beyond county lines, maybe beyond state lines. We don't know yet. I flinched at you kept. but I didn't correct him. He caught himself and grimaced. Sorry, he said quickly. Old habit. What I mean is, your dad did. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure they know that. You understand? I nodded again. Harding scribbled something in his notebook. Let's start from the beginning, he said. Tell me how you got that Snapchat. I told him everything. I told him about the friend request, the photo of us at the creek, the messages about the time capsule. I told him about the combination lock, the smell, the stone steps. I told him about my dad appearing at the top of the stairs like he'd always been there. I told him about my father's twisted explanation, the notes he claimed to have found, the way he'd convinced himself he was protecting me. I told him about the hammer. When I got to the part where I swung it, my voice faltered. I wasn't trying to kill him, I said. Not at first. I just wanted him to stop. I wanted him to let go of Danny. I wanted him to... I trailed off. Harding watched me carefully. Jake, he said quietly. I've seen a lot of crime scenes. I've seen murder, manslaughter, self-defense, accident. I've seen cold-blooded and I've seen panic. I know the diff. So will the prosecutor. So will a jury, if it came to that. He leaned forward in his chair. What I saw down there, he said, was a kid trying to save his friend's life from a man who had already killed at least 2 people and was about to kill again. I saw a boy using the only tool he had to stop a monster. He held my gaze. I'm not worried about you, he said. You shouldn't be either. You did nothing wrong. Tears burned behind my eyes. He was my dad, I whispered. I know, Harding said. He didn't say, I'm sorry. He didn't say, he wasn't really your father. He didn't say any of the useless things people say when they don't know what else to say. He just sat there and let me cry. When the worst of it passed, he flipped a page in his notebook. There's something else, he said reluctantly. Something you should know, but I need you to brace yourself, okay? My stomach clenched. What? I asked. He hesitated. We found other remains, he said, in the tunnel, in a sort of side chamber, I guess you'd call it. We're still processing everything. It's gonna take time to identify them, but there are at least 2, possibly 3. Cold spread through my chest. Danny said there were others, I murmured. 2 before him. He said their names were carved into the wall. Harding nodded. They were, he said. We got photos before anyone touched anything. You know what was also carved into that wall? I shook my head. Dates, he said. 3 time spans, each 3 to 4 years long, and next to each span, a word. He flipped his notebook around and showed me a page. He'd written them down. Caleb 2005-2009, broken. Ethan 2009-2012, lost. Danny 2012-2025, changed. My breath caught. I think those are his labels, Harding said quietly. How he categorized them, what he thought he'd done to them. I stared at the last one. Changed. My dad's voice echoed in my head. After everything I did for you, after I chose you. Handler, I whispered. Harding's eyes sharpened. Yeah, he said. That word your friend wrote. We've been thinking about that. There's something else you should know. He pulled his phone out of his pocket and tapped the screen a few times. This is going to sound crazy, he said, but crazy seems to be the theme of the day. So here we go. He turned the phone toward me. On the screen was a photo of a piece of paper pinned to a corkboard. It was yellowed with age. The text slightly faded. It was a missing person flyer. A boy who looked about 10 stared out from the grainy print, smiling crookedly. Dark hair, big ears, a chipped front tooth. Underneath his photo, a name. Caleb Ruiz, 2009, Harding said. Different county, different jurisdiction. Kid disappeared walking home from a friend's house. They thought he was a runaway at first. Then they found his backpack by the side of the road. It became a big story for a while. Then it faded. He swiped to another photo. A different flyer. A different boy. Freckled. Braces. The name this time was Ethan Kim. 2012, Harding said. On his way home from soccer practice, witnesses saw him get into a car driven by a white male in his 40s. Composite sketch was vague. No plate, no hit. Another cold case. He locked eyes with me. Both of those boys, he said, were part of a larger case we've been helping the feds with. Multiple missing children across 3 states over 20 years. Similar victim profiles. Similar MO. The working theory was a trafficking ring. A network. A group of people who do things like your dad did. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. A network? I repeated. Harding nodded grimly. And every time they thought they had a lead, every time they got close to a suspect, the trail went cold, he said. Sometimes the suspect died suddenly. Sometimes evidence went missing. Sometimes a key witness recanted. It was like someone was always one step ahead. Someone like my dad, I said. Maybe, Harding said. Or someone like whoever he was working for. I blinked. What do you mean? I demanded. He kept Danny in our basement for 13 years. He carved those boys' names into the wall. He bragged about always doing what he had to do. What else do you need? Isn't he the guy? Harding rubbed his eyes. Maybe he was, he said. Or maybe he was one of them. We don't know yet, but there are some things that don't add up. For one, your family's finances. I frowned. What about them? I asked. We were middle class, I guess. My dad's an engineer. He worked for, according to his W-2s, he made about 80 grand a year. Harding said. Comfortable? Sure, not extravagant. But when we pulled his bank records this morning, we found something interesting. He rose and paced the small room. Every 6 months for the last 15 years, he said. There's been a deposit into a savings account with your dad's name on it. Same amount each time. $10,000. No originating account listed. Cashier's check. Always purchased at a different bank in a different city. The memo line just says consulting. My mouth went dry. Consulting for what? I whispered. We don't know, Harding said. Yeah, we're going to find out. But my gut? My gut says your dad wasn't the only one involved in this. My gut says handler means what it sounds like. Someone who manages, prepares, shapes, changed. What are you saying? I asked, my voice barely audible. That he was training them for someone else? Harding looked at me for a long moment. I'm saying, he said carefully, that if your friend wrote that your dad was his handler, not his whatever else, then your dad might not have been the final destination. The room seemed to shrink around me. What happens now? I asked, staring at my hands. With Danny, with me, with all of this. Harding sighed. Now? He said. Now. The feds come in. They're going to want to talk to you. They're going to want to talk to Danny, if he makes it. He held up a hand when I flinched. I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm saying it because we need him. We need what he knows. There might be other kids out there. Kids your dad prepared who didn't end up dead. He sank back into the chair. As for you, he said, you're a victim. Full stop. But you're also a witness and the son of the perpetrator. That's a lot. They're going to want you in protective custody, at least for a while. Protected from who? I asked bitterly. He's dead. Harding's eyes drifted to the word on his phone. Handler. Yeah, he said softly. He is. He didn't have to say the rest. There might be others. They moved me that afternoon. 2 U.S. Marshals came to the hospital room and introduced themselves with serious, practiced voices. They explained what protective custody meant. Safe houses, new routines, a burner phone, limited contact with the outside world, just until things settle down. One of them, a woman named Alvarez, said, we don't know how far this goes yet. We'd rather be overcautious than sorry. I signed papers I barely read. Before they took me away, I begged to see Danny. No promises, Alvarez said. ICU is strict, but I'll see what I can do. Somehow, she did it. 10 minutes later, I was standing outside a glass-walled room, my heart lodged in my throat. Danny lay in the bed, dwarfed by machine. Tubes snaked from his arms, his nose, his chest. Bandages wrapped most of his body. His hair had been shaved in places to access injuries. Under the harsh lights, his skin looked almost translucent. person. He looked small, smaller than he'd ever looked when we were kids, smaller than he'd looked huddled in that basement corner. A nurse adjusted a drip and gave me a sad smile. "You can go in," she said, "but you can't touch anything, and you only have a few minutes." My legs felt like they belonged to someone else as I walked into the room. The beeping of the heart monitor was a steady, fragile rhythm. Suddenly, I was terrified that if I spoke, if I said the wrong thing, it would falter. "Hey," I whispered, standing next to the bed. "It's me, Jake." His eyes were closed. I wasn't sure if he could hear me. The nurse had said he was sedated. They had to keep him under while they cleaned and stitched and set and treated. I took a shaky breath. "I'm so sorry," I said. "I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner. I'm sorry I didn't move that damn shelf. I'm sorry I chose to believe he was a good person instead of seeing what was right under my feet. I'm sorry for every birthday I celebrated while you, a hot tear splashed onto the sheet. I wiped it away quickly, like I was afraid it would burn him. "I don't know what happens next," I admitted. "The cops are talking about networks and handlers and other kids. They think my dad was part of something bigger. I think so too. I think you do, or you wouldn't have written that word." I swallowed hard. "Whatever this is," I said, "I'm not running from it. I'm done pretending. I'm done being the kid who doesn't know anything. They're going to ask us questions. They're going to want details. And I know that's going to be hell for you, having to remember it all. But if you can do that, maybe we can stop the rest of them. Maybe we can make this mean something." The heart monitor kept beeping. I laughed weakly. "Listen to me," I said, "making speeches while you're unconscious. Classic Jake move, huh?" His eyelids flickered. My breath caught. "Danny?" I leaned forward. "Hey, can you hear me?" His eyes didn't open, but his fingers moved just a little, just enough to twitch against the sheet. I looked wildly at the nurse. Was that a reflex?" I asked. "Or," she smiled, "could be either," she said gently. "But if you're talking to him, keep doing it. Sometimes they hear more than we think." I looked back at him. "Okay," I said, "then I'll keep talking. I'll never shut up again. You're going to be so sick of my voice." I wanted to stay longer, but after a few minutes, the nurse touched my arm. "Time's up," she said softly. Alvarez was waiting in the hall. "You ready?" she asked. "No." "Yes," I said. We walked away from the ICU together. I didn't look back. The safe house was an anonymous townhouse in a row of identical anonymous townhouses on the edge of a city I didn't recognize. "We move often," Alvarez explained as we carried my small duffel bag inside. "Keeps things unpredictable. You'll have a room upstairs. I'll be around most of the time. Or one of my colleagues will." "Do people know who I am?" I asked. "Like the neighbors?" She shook her head. "As far as they're concerned, you're my cousin's kid," she said. "Here for a little while because of family stuff." "Family stuff," I repeated faintly. "That part's not a lie," she said quietly. "The first night there, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the basement. Sometimes I was Danny, watching the door open, hoping it was me and seeing my father instead. Sometimes I was my dad, standing at the top of the stairs, watching myself walk into the dark like a lamb to the slaughter. Sometimes I was nowhere, a disembodied presence hovering above it all, unable to scream loud enough to wake the boy playing video games upstairs. Around 3 a.m, my burner phone buzzed. I hadn't given the number to anyone yet. Only Alvarez and Harding had it. For emergencies, they'd said. For a second, my heart stopped. Then I saw the name on the screen. Private number. My stomach twisted. I answered. "Hello?" My voice was a rasp. Static hissed in my ear. "Jake?" a woman's voice said. My throat closed. "Mom?" I whispered. There was a pause, then a shaky laugh. "Oh my God," she said. "Oh my God. Jake, are you okay? Are you safe? They said you were in some kind of witness protection thing. I don't even know. They wouldn't tell me anything. And then the news." She broke off, sobbing. I sank onto the edge of the bed. "Yeah," I said. I'm safe." I didn't know what that word meant anymore, but I said it anyway. "How did you—" I began. "The police called," she said, sniffing. They said your father was dead, that there had been an incident. They asked me questions about him, about his habits, and then they told me what they'd found. Under the house." Her voice cracked. "Jake, I lived there for years. I slept above that room. I cooked dinner in that kitchen. I did laundry in that basement. And I never knew. How did I not know? Because he didn't want you to, I thought. Because he knew exactly which buttons to push. Because he turned your pain into his shield. Because he did the same thing to me. It wasn't your fault," I said. She inhaled sharply. "They showed me something," she whispered. "The detective. They asked for my permission first. They said it might jog my memory. It might make something click. I shouldn't have looked. I knew I shouldn't have, but I did." "What did they show you?" I asked, even though I already knew. "The room," she said. That place. The scratches on the walls. The drawings." Her voice dropped. "The box." I frowned. "What box?" She took a shuddering breath. "There was a metal lockbox on a shelf," she said. "They said it was hidden behind some boards. They asked if I recognized it. I didn't. But when they opened it," she broke off, strangled. "Mom," I said, fear creeping up my spine. "What was in the box?" "Notes," she whispered. "Dozens of them. Maybe 100. Little scraps of paper. Some old and yellow, some newer. All of them. Plans." She swallowed. "Your plans." My mouth went dry. "What?" I croaked. "Your handwriting," she said. "From when you were a kid. Running away to the creek. Running away to the city. Running away to live in a treehouse. Running away and taking Danny with you. Running away and never coming back." My heart hammered against my ribs. I started. "We were just playing. We never—" "I know," she said quickly. "I know that. Kids write things. They daydream. They vent. That's normal. But he kept them. Jake, he saved every single one he found. He wrote dates on them. He wrote responses that he never sent. You're better than this. You're not going anywhere. I'll keep you safe." Her voice shook. "He built a religion out of them, a justification. He made your childish fantasies into proof that the world was trying to steal you from him." I thought of my dad's face in the basement, twisted with conviction. He was going to take you from me. I saw the word carved into the wall. "Changed. He was sick," I said hollowly. "He turned everything into a threat." "He did," she said. "And I helped him. I didn't mean to, but I did." I frowned. "What do you mean?" I asked. She was silent for a long moment. "When you were 8, she said finally, you came home from Danny's house with a bruise on your arm. A big one, finger shape. Your father saw it and lost his mind. He wanted to call the cops. He wanted to drive over there and drag Danny's parents outside. He wanted to—" She trailed off. I talked him down. I said kids roughhouse. I said accidents happen. I said he was overreacting. I vaguely remembered the bruise. We'd been playing some made-up game, wrestling in the yard. I'd fallen off the jungle gym. Danny had grabbed my arm at the last second to keep me from cracking my head. He'd held on so hard he'd left mark. He never forgot it, my mom said. He brought it up again when you were 10, 11, 12. Every time you and Danny got in trouble at school, every time you came home a little late, he'd say, "Do you remember the bruise?" Like it meant something, like it was proof. She exhaled raggedly. "I thought he was just being dramatic," she said, "being overprotective. I didn't know he was building a case in his head. I didn't know he was taking notes." We fell into a heavy silence. Finally, she spoke again. "I'm so sorry I left you," she whispered. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought if I left, the tension in the house would go down, that he'd calm down, that he'd stop hovering. I thought he was just a controlling husband. I didn't know he was—" Her voice broke. "I should have taken you with me. I should have fought harder." I closed my eyes. "You didn't know," I said. "None of us did." "I should have," she insisted. "There were signs, little things. The way he locked the basement door when he was working. The way he would freak out if I moved anything in the garage. The way he'd get weird if we talked about you going away to college." She laughed bitterly. "I thought he was just scared of being an empty nester," she said. I thought it was sweet. "Can you believe that? I thought it meant he loved you so much he couldn't imagine life without you." "He did love me," I said before I could stop myself. The words hung there, awful and true. "He loved you the way an addict loves a drug. my mom said softly. He loved you the way a prison guard loves his favorite inmate. He loved you as proof that he was good. He loved you as a reflection of himself. That's not love that lets you grow. That's love that keeps you in a basement. My chest hurt. I don't know what to do with any of this, I admitted. Everyone keeps telling me he was a monster, and he was, but he was also my dad. I don't know how to merge those two people in my head. I keep remembering the time he drove 3 hours to bring me my cleats because I forgot them. And then I remember him saying, "They won't make it in time," while holding a hammer over my best friend. You don't have to merge them, she said. You don't have to forgive him. You don't have to hate him. You just have to live. You just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Therapy will help. Time will help, she sniffed. And maybe helping those other kids will help too, she added. The detective said they found things, file, photos, names. He said you and Danny might be the key to unraveling all of it. I thought of the word on Danny's arm, handler. What if they come after me? I asked quietly. Whoever he was working for. What if they want to tie up loose ends? That's why you're with the marshals, she said firmly. That's why you're not alone. They're not going to let anything happen to you. Jake, not again. There was a knock on my door. Wrap it up, Alvarez called gently. Lights out soon. I have to go, I told my mom. I know, she said. Jake? Yeah? I love you, she said. Not the way he did. Not the twisted way. Just simply as my son. That's it. That's all. Tears spilled over again. I love you too, I whispered. We hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time. Then I opened Snapchat. The app loaded, cheerful and bright, as if it weren't the reason my entire life had imploded. My friends list was empty. No Danny M 2012. I went to my messages. The conversation with Danny was still there. The photo of the creek, the time capsule message, the confession about my dad, his last text. I sent everything to the police before I messaged you. Screenshot of his confession, location of the house, all of it. They're on their way. You just have to survive until they get here. I scrolled up to the top of the chat. Something caught my eye. The little gray text under his username. Joined Snapchat 2 weeks ago. I frowned. 2 weeks. He'd been in that basement for 13 years. How the hell had he gotten a phone, installed Snapchat, made an account, and learned how to use it in 2 weeks? He'd said he stole the phone from my dad. I thought of my father's old flip phone, the one he'd used for years, the one that definitely couldn't run Snapchat. Where had the smartphone come from? I zoomed in on the profile picture. There wasn't one, just a gray silhouette. I opened the story again. The photo of the two of us at the creek was grainy, like it had been scanned from an old print. The date in the corner was July 13th, 2012, the day before he disappeared. Someone had kept that photo. Someone had digitized it. Someone had used it to get my attention. My dad wouldn't have done that. He'd spent years pretending Danny didn't exist. The only time he'd ever mentioned him was with thinly veiled annoyance. So who had? My skin crawled. I stared at the top of the screen. Danny M 2012. I tapped the name, opening the profile. Still no Bitmoy. Still no score. But there was one new thing. A little line of text under his name. Managed by team support. What the hell? I whispered. I screenshotted it. Then my phone buzzed. A new message from Danny M 2012. My heart slammed against my ribs, hands shaking. I opened it. There was no text, just a single image. A hallway, dimly lit, white walls, a sign on the far wall in block letters. Intensive care unit. At the bottom of the frame, barely visible, was the corner of a hospital bed being wheeled through a door. The timestamp on the photo was 10 minutes ago. A caption appeared under it as I watched. Change takes time. My blood turned to ice. Alvarez, I shouted. Alvarez, I need you. She burst into the room a second later, hand already on her gun. What is it? She demanded. I held out the phone with numb fingers. She took one look at the screen. Her face went pale. Shit, she whispered. I pointed at the caption. Who the hell? I asked, my voice shaking. Is on the other end of Danny's account? Alvarez's jaw clenched. I don't know, she said, but we're going to find out. She turned and barked something into her radio. My phone buzzed again. Another snap. Same hallway. The camera had moved closer to the ICU door. This time, the caption was shorter. See you soon, Jake. I stared at the screen, my own terrified reflection staring back at me. For the first time since I'd walked into that basement, I understood what my dad had meant. You have no idea what you've just started. He was wrong about almost everything, but he was right about that. The monster under my house was dead. The ones who'd been feeding him were still out there. And now, they knew my name.